Hey there, this is Patrick from Dallas Hockey Hangout, coming to you after a 6-3 Stars loss to the Carolina Hurricanes. Pretty tough game for the Stars. Obviously, not the best start to their long road trip. They was pretty much not an aspect of their game that they did well, and they're currently riding a 6-game losing streak. So a few of those losses have come in shootout or overtime loss, but the streak of Dallas seeming to be on at least to start the year of no like majorly bad stretches of play, that seems to be, in serious question at this point. I think it's, Dallas is obviously not playing up to the standards they've set for themselves and what they've set for the season based on how most of their play has gone this year. Lot to talk about. Unfortunately, not a ton in favor for Dallas, but just try and be a little bit quicker. I can't imagine Stars fans are wanting to hear exactly a ton on a 6-3 loss, but just start out with like we normally do, in that how should we be viewing this team? And my personal viewpoint is Dallas has been so up and down lately. In years past, when they've kind of struggled and then they go out on road trips, they seemingly find their game. So I think even Glenn Gulleton, after the game, mentioned several things. I'm going to talk about a lot about what he said, but he mentioned that the Stars were put a lot on this game. I think it's really interesting because, I'm not going to say I was, saying, hey, if they don't win this game, they're a bad team. But certainly I was viewing Carolina as a litmus test. They are one of the class of the Eastern Conference over the past, 5-7 seasons. They always are in the, in the mix, in the playoffs, and really tough team to play against, especially defensively. Obviously, they look good on all sides of the puck today, but, they're sitting atop the Metropolitan Division with 55 points, and Tampa Bay's owning the Atlantic with 55. So essentially, we're looking at the best team in the Eastern Conference right now. Certainly there are other teams that could, claim that crown, but, for lack of a better term, Dallas is just kind of in the middle of a pretty difficult schedule. When you look back at some of the 6 losses, you have a loss to Detroit, very quality team. You have a loss to Buffalo, who's on an incredible streak until that busted recently. You have really quality Montreal team. And then obviously the 2 losses to Chicago, while the Blackhawks aren't killing it this year, they're obviously improved, and Dallas has, kind of had trouble with the Blackhawks speed over the last few years, even when they've been down. I think that, styles make fights, and, obviously Dallas is not playing to their best, but I think, they're playing some really quality opponents, and then just other parts of their game are just not totally up to par. And, that's kind of what's going to lead to some of these losses, and some of them which have been lopsided, like tonight's loss. So it's not going to get any easier for the Stars. We'll talk about upcoming schedule and their matchup with Washington. But yeah, don't want to get bogged down recapping what was a pretty tough game, but I just kind of give a few thoughts on some of the players for Carolina, just so we are giving their due. They make a big trade for Keandre Miller, and obviously he gets a couple goals tonight. And, we're seeing the second game, I believe it is, for Stankoven against the Stars, perhaps third, but, he gets that late one in the first period. And not only was that momentous in that it stings from, however you want to look at it, never as good when, gets scored on against a, former star. It always kind of feels like, man, we shouldn't have let him go, or however you want to look at it. Obviously the Stars got ran and out of it, but, I'll always be rooting for Stankoven. Said, I believe Razor saying on the broadcast that his style fits with the kind of shoot first mindset that the Hurricanes have. And, I really like how he's fit in there. And I believe he's got goals in back-to-back. He's a streaky player. Wouldn't be surprised to see this next few games him start to pile up the goals. So, but, his goal was a momentous one, and that Dallas does seem to be giving up a few last-minute goals, or goals first minute into the period. And, man, they're just such backbreakers. They seem to sway a lot of these games recently. So Dallas goes into first intermission already down 3-1 against a team that you know is going to bring it physically and defensively. I certainly looked at this game as a big test for the Stars because, you know, like Dallas, Carolina is one of the elite teams that just can't seem to get it done. And obviously they're making some changes. They made some trades recently, and, you know, they are a team trying a new strategy. I mean, it helps that they've built the lead that they have, but certainly I'm sure they're planning for the potential matchup of you know, a Florida type team, big, physical. I feel like Carolina's been positioning itself to kind of match up with that. So it would be kind of cool to see, um, you know, a matchup between them in the playoffs. So we'll see. But the second period didn't go any better for Dallas. You give up two more, including the second power play goal by Jarvis for his 20th. And, you know, Dallas took 5 penalties today, and I thought it was really pointed by Gulleton after the game to just talk about defense and discipline. And genuinely, that was my feeling after the game, is that they didn't look good defensively and they took some careless penalties. I do feel as though it's in my obligation to at least call it like I see it. You know, I'm not here to toe any company line or anything, but I thought that this game and the game against Montreal, I didn't think the refs were very good. I thought that they were, especially more so in the game against Montreal, I thought Montreal was really quick to fall off their skates. And I felt like the refs were buying that a little too much. And then, you know, they called some pretty wonky, you know, penalties tonight as far as like stick fouls. You know, you got slashing, hooking, tripping, slashing, all with a stick. Yes, they got the, you know, tripping on Aho. And then you got, and then you got the Rantanen slashing on Jarvis, which, man, you know, the one that I thought was pretty bad was the hooking call that they got Rope for on Stahl. Stahl seemed to just skate right into Hence's stick that was parallel to the ice and kind of like fake draw. I thought it was a smart play by Stahl, but I feel like I'm not sure how you fall for that if you're the refs. Robertson's definitely a slash. Lundqvist, I thought that was a pretty weak call, and I also thought the Rantanen call was pretty weak. So, and honestly, you know, the Ernie call wasn't great either. So it didn't help that Dallas was putting themselves in a position to, you know, take those. It's you know, the fact of the game. They took those penalties. They didn't kill them off. It was a major part of the game. So, and obviously that's been a trend recently as well. Dallas has been taking a lot of penalties lately, and it's definitely contributed to their defense not playing as well. Pretty pointed to hear Miro Heiskanen after the game talk about how, you know, undisciplined they were and how it was forcing some guys to play more penalty kill time, which was affecting the ice time of some of the other players. I think Radek Faksa, who is a great example, you know, he's a 0 on the night, so it's better than some of the other players. But I mean, he's playing almost 13 minutes, and 3 of those are shorthanded minutes. So I would think that, you know, that's 3 less minutes that Stars can't play guys at 5-on-5. I mean, you know, Steele's playing 2:30 of PK time, and that's time he can't be on 5-on-5, and yeah, it just throws your timing off. Same for, you know, the defenseman. I mean, S is playing 5.5 minutes on the PK, and, you know, more guys. I mean, Lyubushkin is playing almost 3 minutes shorthanded, and, you know, that's leading to, you know, potentially, you know, some poor play. He was -2 on the day. So yeah, I mean, it's a common thread recently, defense and discipline. It's not surprising to hear that that's the mantra coming out of this game. So yeah, I mean, all around it was a confluence of things not working well. I mean, not surprised, but, you know, it was illuminating to hear that this was the first time that Ottinger had been this season. And yeah, I felt like it was a wake the team up pull, but also like, man, that I believe it was the 4th goal that Dallas gave up, where, you know, kind of gets the weird bank off the glass and, you know, ricochets out, and it's just not a good one, but also just kind of fluky. Not quite on the fluke level of Robertson's goal. I mean, you know, there's not a lot of great things to talk about for this game for the Stars, but man, that was one of the coolest goals I've ever seen, and one of the flukiest goals you'll ever see. I can't ever remember, you know, I've seen pucks get lodged in pads or whatever, and then the goalie ends up kind of putting his pad into the net. And that's a goal. That's a weird one, but can't say I've ever seen it flung into the net like that. I thought that was really interesting and kind of I seem to have a beat on it when you see the replay. You're just even really watching it original, you could kind of see from the like arc of the puck. It did seem like he flung it in there, and sure enough, it's in his sleeve. And I think my wife made the case to me that if I'm Carolina there, I'm probably a little upset that they didn't blow it down. But that said, I mean, the rest didn't know where it was, and neither did the Canes players. So they're, everyone's still looking for it. And Bussy didn't have to completely fleeing himself. That was a crazy goal. I mean, honestly, I don't think I've ever seen a goal like that. So, if there's one good thing that comes from this game, it's that we got to see something that probably doesn't happen very often. So, it's 5-1 after the second. And I know it's good to see Dallas battle back in the third. It's still a beatdown, but, Mikko gets on the board. And, since he's got incredible hands. What can you say about that play? So silky smooth. But yeah, I will say that it was a little weird to see how committed truly Canes fans were to booing him. If I heard correctly, I guess I'll triple check here, but I mean, Mikko didn't really play well with, in Carolina. And, I think it was one of those trades in which, both teams were probably okay, because I'm not quite sure that that Mikko fit in with Carolina. I think Mikko is a playmaker and, very, thinks the game very well and, maybe a little slower at times. And, Carolina is just so fast paced. Yeah. I mean, 6 points in 13 games. Like, I mean, Mikko sneezes 6 points with the Stars this year and late last year. So, the constant booing was pretty both surprising and like, I don't know, disappointing. It just feels a little like, I don't know, for lack of a better term, low class. Like, I'm really trying to think if there are any players that Stars fans would like actively boo like that constantly every time they touch the puck. And, I think I won't say his name. I can think of like one player that is no longer with the Stars that maybe didn't have the best tenure and had some previous dealings that maybe they might boo. Stars fans might boo a time or two, but the constant booing, I mean, you're winning the game too. It just seemed like a weird look, but whatever. I mean, to each their own. They feel spurned by Mikko and they have a right to feel that way, and they still get a good player in Stankoven out of it. I got to figure Canes fans are feeling pretty good about that trade, all things considered. Seems to have worked out for both teams. But, that said, it was Carolina that traded for him knowing that he didn't have a contract extension. So he was well within his rights to say, hey, I don't really plan on re-signing. Dallas took the same risk, or would have theoretically, but ensured that he was willing to, extend with Dallas, and that's why they traded for him. So he seems happy here, and Carolina seems just fine without him. So, let's move on type of thing. I hope this is the last time that we kind of hear the story, because I definitely felt like his exit from Carolina was overblown. And, he's being asked about why he doesn't want to resign, all that. Like, man, maybe he just wanted to make more money. Or he wants to live in, a different part of the country. There's just so much that goes into it. And, as fans and even journalists, it's just a little unfair to presume that it's so easy to determine that stuff when he's talking about the next big contract and the next 10 years of his life, essentially. Don't blame him at all for wanting to, consider other options and be honest about saying, hey, I'm not really feeling it here. Trade me somewhere else. So then all that, not to get into the facts of it all, but Colorado could have afforded him based on what he signed with in Dallas. From my understanding, that's what he was asking for, and Colorado didn't want to meet it. So, if there's anyone that should be upset, I mean, I guess I understand Colorado being a little upset, and that maybe I could see him asking for whatever. I don't want to get into the litigating all the facts and figures of it all, but Colorado could have had him. Carolina made a big risk trading for him, and Dallas is the benefactor of that. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting to see the headline of this ESPN story. Rantanen jeered and Raleigh returned, Canes cruise. They definitely cruise, and he was definitely jeered. So whoever wrote that, really well done. But it just feels a little petty, honestly. And, I think a lot of people from Stars land, like, they want to root for Carolina. I mean, I want to root for Stankoven. I want this kid to succeed. And, it's not like the only time Dallas would run into Carolina would be the Stanley Cup. So, there shouldn't be a lot of bad blood between the two teams. I don't know. It's just a pretty weird thing. At first, there was part of me that like I was like, "Are they saying Moose?" And no, they're booing. Yeah. So yeah, look, it's just one game. I did want to touch on Onger being pulled. I know I got off track there on Ren, and Onger has largely played pretty well this year, but he's had some games at which he's given up, 3, 4, 5 goals, and especially lately. So, I mean, it's a long season, and, you're never going to just put up crazy numbers every game of the year. Carolina's a great team, obviously leading their division. So I thought Casey DeSmith did really well coming in to spell him. And, just listening to Glenn Gulleton, they said the plan was to play DeSmith in the second game and that they would reevaluate that now that he had to play against Carolina. But I think the plan was still to play him. So yeah, it would be really interesting to see how DeSmith plays against, the Capitals. And if for some reason they give Jake another chance, I could kind of see that as far as like, it's not, Jake hasn't exactly been lighting it up recently. So I think it would be actually a nice move to see him get another chance to go out there. But that said, I mean, the Smiths, that's why he's here. He plays well on the second line of back-to-backs and seems to kind of hold down the fort. So yeah, I would definitely lean towards, especially hearing what Gulleton said, that they'll go to DeSmith. And, it's not an easy team in the Capitals they're playing. So yeah, we'll just do 3 stars. I definitely thought that Miller was the best player in the game. And Svechnikov had 4 assists, and Ewers did have 3 assists, and Jarvis goal and assists. He was pretty good, but at least on this podcast, we're always going to at least leave a star for a stars player, just to at least recognize who played the best in the game. Now I'm going to give it to Mikko, even though Robertson had 3 points and was actually even as opposed to Mikko's -3. But I mean, his goal ignited the Stars in the third, and it seemed like he is the straw that stirs the Dallas offense. So it seemed like he had the most creativity out there tonight, and it's a loser's ribbon anyway. So I'm not too gung ho if someone else wants to say someone else from the Stars should have been one of the other representatives. But yeah, so we'll just go Miller, Svechnikov, and Mikko. So yeah, just we'll look ahead to a game against Washington. I got a chance to watch them in their 7-4 win over Anaheim a couple nights ago. And yeah, I mean, Washington has largely been up and down lately, actually more down than up. Let's just do some quick math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 losses in their past 15, 16 games. So 10 losses in the last 15, 16 games, like not exactly crushing it, but they've proven, like the Stars, previous to this kind of up and down spell, they put together a 6-game win streak, and won, 9 of 10. So like Dallas, they put together some good stretches. Sordiff, I was very impressed by this rookie hat trick for him, and I love to see all the other Capitals be excited for him. And then, guess what? Ho-Hum Ovechkin just puts in another couple. Dallas plays Washington pretty well. It's going to be an exciting game, that's for sure. And despite their up and down play, I mean, Washington has guys. Tom Wilson, I really like his game. It's tough that he's got, kind of a rep as being kind of, for lack of a better term, dirty player. But man, I would want him on my team. And I don't traditionally say that about some other players. Like, for example, you can think of some other quote unquote dirty players around the league, and, I wouldn't want them on my team simply knowing that they had that in them. But I do genuinely believe that Tom Wilson is just a freight train and just hard to slow down. And, this really is his team now. He's got 42 points and 41 games played. So Ovechkin is the next closest with 36 points and 43 games played. Wilson is just incredible on the power play. He's plus 20 on the season, is defensively responsible, shooting really good percentages this year, 22%, excuse me. And he's got 7 power play goals this year. So I would imagine they'll circle him on the whiteboard for the Stars. And, I'm glad we're talking about him because Jamie Benn was missed again man, that fall he had was really tough to see, the no visor. And God, I feel like it's just one big punch to the face landing on that ice. So yeah, I mean, Dallas definitely is going to need to bring their physical game against Washington, because Washington's going to bring it, and it's going to be a chippy game. And I hope Dallas matches that, because they're not playing well right now. There's no denying that, and I think that this is a long road trip for the Stars coming up. Just they're just a game into it, but you know Washington's great team. San Jose is pretty dang good team. LA being the worst of these, and even still, like, they are coming off a solid win, and Anaheim is they just coming off back-to-back wins over Minnesota. So you think that they're the worst team? I mean, you say it, but yeah, I mean, guess what? All these teams are really good. Anaheim and then Utah. And Utah just, having watched them recently, they're coming off a 3-2 win over the Rangers, who have been playing well, and, beat the Islanders 7-2 the other night, hung with Colorado 1-0. Like, Utah's a good team. Don't sleep on any of these teams. They're 20-20-3. So I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but it just is, representative of what Dallas has coming up. I felt headed into the 6-game road trip that if Dallas could go 3-3, that would be actually pretty good, because there's some tough matchups here. You got the back-to-back, but then, Dallas gets, so you have Thursday, Friday off. So you get a practice day before you play San Jose, which is a day game. That's pretty interesting. And then, man, guess what? Monday night game, late for Stars fans, and then back-to-back against Anaheim, another late game, and then finish up with Thursday against, the Mammoth. And guess what? Come home and play Tampa Bay and Boston. So it doesn't get any easier. It seems like it definitely is a race to kind of a sprint to the Olympic break. Looks like the last game Dallas plays before that break is the 4th. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games till the Olympic break. And when we get there, you're going to be looking at, oh man, there's 30 games left, and you're going to be feeling like Dallas better be getting it together by that time. So yeah, there's a lot on the line coming up. Am I worried about the stretch of play recently? I mean, 3 out of these 6 losses, Dallas has gotten points in, and it could have gone their way, but vice versa. They weren't really ever in the game against Carolina. The game against more lopsided than, the score would suggest. And, Buffalo really played really well against them, and they kind of weren't really in that game either. So kind of just depends on if you're a half empty, half full type of guy or girl. And yeah, it feels like I really am right about I'm having trouble being full or empty, because they've had some good stretches of play, but then they've had some like worse they've looked this year type of play. They definitely miss Bichel. I think that's clear. He can't get back, soon enough. And I haven't heard any timetable on him. I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas is kicking the tires on looking at, getting another defenseman in here, because, not to throw shade at anybody, I just don't think that Lyubushkin and Neil Lundqvist have played the best. And then, as a whole, the Stars defensive unit hasn't been playing well. Like Harley's, having some pretty negative plus minus games. Same with Miro, Essa, like these guys that normally dominate are just kind of playing average. And when you're being outscored and you can't score, I mean, it's all, it all has to do with each other. Taking lots of penalties, throw off the ice time, not capitalizing on your power play, bad goaltending, goals given up in the first or last minute of a period. Like, the frustration set in. The glass that Miro Heiskanen slash against in Chicago is still on my mind, and Dallas is frustrated. They're still taking penalties. You saw Gulletson on the bench is yelling pretty good at the refs, but I'm sure that's also a message for his team. So, they're going to have to dig it out. I mean, if Dallas can come up with a big win, this is a nationally televised game against the Capitals. So if Dallas can come up with a big win, then yeah, I would hope that, maybe we could quiet the rabble rousers for the time being. But, Stars have to do some winning here, because, the days of them just being tagged as one of the top teams in the NHL now, I think those are gone. I think that the rest of the West is catching up and Dallas is coming back to earth a little bit. But that said, we all know, the types of injuries that Dallas is going through. And, you don't have these veteran presences in the locker room. No Sagan, no Ben right now. They were without Duchesne for a fair amount of time. And obviously they're still looking for line combinations and sparks. And, there's a lot of season left to be played and a lot of wrinkles to iron out. So at least Dallas gets an opportunity to get back at it. And I look forward to doing another podcast on the game against the Caps because me personally, I love watching Ovechkin. Anytime Stars get a game against the Capitals, I'm certainly, I don't miss Stars games, but I definitely don't miss Caps Stars games. And, you never know how long you're going to get to watch Ovechkin, for people just getting into the sport. Or people that have been watching for 15 years. I mean, don't take his play for granted because what he's doing right now at his age is so special. And I'm really going to miss watching Ovechkin play. So I hope he's got a couple more years in him. But, for now, we'll soak up this matchup and hopefully Dallas plays pretty well against him. They seem to have that one timer on the power play defended pretty well, but they didn't defend the slot very well on these power plays against Carolina. So I would also look out for Tom Wilson in this game. So yeah, it's a tough loss. But Dallas has another opportunity to get right back at it. So, Dallas loses 6-3 to Carolina Hurricanes, and Carolina, that just slipped out. The accent just slips out. Carolina Hurricanes, big win. Happy for Stankoven. Dallas has got to find that defensive discipline like Gulletson is talking about. So appreciate you guys tuning in. If you got any questions, Patrick Hayslip on Twitter, DallasHockeyHangout@gmail.com. I really appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. Have a good night.